Hello, happy Thursday, and I'm Clover Thursday, and welcome back to my channel. Today will be a kind of fun one. This speed paint, we're using a lot of like blending modes, um, which are super useful. It'll be fun to sort of work through that. And also, I will be drawing my OC Fall Blue. I've had this character for about 10 years. She started out as like sort of the mascot to my first DeviantArt account. Well, second DeviantArt account. We don't talk about the first one. It's 12-year-old Clover, so it gets bad. But I started off with a pencil sketch. It didn't really matter how smudgy it was. Actually, did matter how smudgy it was, but I'll get to that later. So I'm inking with some downloaded brushes. Comic ink brush by Mateo. Um, I will put like an annotation or something, or even just the name in the description. Google it, it's free. I really like it, and you'll see sort of the textures really come out when I start inking the fuller blacks later on. But yeah, I really like the textured look. Um, and I've drawn that hand a good couple times. Um, in the sketch, I should have refined it with hands um, to stop with all this redrawing. And that's sort of the thing with sketches. Like sketching's awesome and fine, but I guess when you're bringing something into the final, it's always good to go back and look at that sketch and just really make sure the structure's sound. It doesn't have to look gorgeous or anything, but to make sure the structure's there so you can, you know, really finesse your final like lines, or when you're painting over it you have a nice structure to work on, or you're gonna end up like me, who had to cut some of these attempts out of the video because it would just make it longer than it should be. um, yeah, oops. The inspiration for Fall's Scarf, I was actually looking at a lot of Claymore and Berserk, both really excellent mangas I enjoy. I will put a bit of a preface slash warning on Berserk. It's got a lot of sensitive content, and it's not for everyone. You have been warned. Um, yeah, even Claymore to some degree, but if you like monsters, and these guys draw monsters and create monsters like it's nobody's business, so if you're into that, I do recommend those too. Uh, yeah, so Fall's Scarf is really fun because I can spend a good long while just working and drawing on it, just adding all these details and teeth and eyes and all this fun stuff. And it's sort of this demonic shape-shifting scarf. So over the years, I could just draw it in any form or configuration I wanted to. So it's always, always, always fun when I get to sit down and actually draw Fall. And nostalgia. Yeah, and here I'm doing the eyes. I wanted them to kind of be a little more graphic, so I copied and pasted instead of sort of drawing each of them warping within the fabric sort of thing. I did draw a few of them just to get some variation and stuff, but I wanted that kind of graphicness because later on you'll see that I introduced these sort of textured solid blacks, so I thought it would look kind of cool. Right now I'm just flatting the entire silhouette, separate from the background. It's just sort of part of my workflow. I really would love to figure out how to get my screen capture to capture my layers menu, because I would like to explain this little handy trick I do. I will try and figure that out. Maybe in another video I will point that out specifically and kind of go through what I do, but essentially if you kind of try and look it up, it's linking layers. So it's always great to have that one main silhouette just in handy for, again, blending options, or using it to link up for shading or whatever, really. And here I'm adding in those solid blacks I was talking about. And again, that texture from the brush is really helping and showing through and kind of giving the look I wanted. I'm not afraid of the texture. And I know you could kind of make that with, overlaying textures, but there's something I like about just sort of being able to draw it in and hatch it out myself within the line work. Again, I think I've mentioned in the past that I'm a bit of a mixed media artist. I still like inking by hand. So the closer I can kind of get to that when I do digital work, the better for me personally. But yeah, we're just filling in a lot of the blacks, and you'll see me pull out to see the whole picture occasionally, just to get how the whole picture looks, because I spend a lot of time zoomed in. It's just how I work. I'm pretty blind. So I always like to pull back and see what the overall thing's looking like and what I can add and what I can push and pull. And I just sort of went a little crazy on the blacks. Just had fun with fall. My baby girl, you know? And now, as you can see, I'm going with the shading. I'm doing it all in grayscale. It was a thing I sort of learned from school. It just makes creating values so much easier when you're not worrying about what color is what. In my past speed paints, you don't really see me doing that, like doing the shading in grayscale, because the color palettes have been so simple that the principle is still the same. Like, just the less amount of colors you have to think about and flat in and stuff, the better. It just makes you think of values rather than colors. And say with my past speed paints, they've all been like one or two colors that I'm still able to think in values very easily. But yeah, it just saves you so much grief just doing grayscale. Like, all I needed to do after kind of shading in with just gray and black and white was just overlaying flat color on top and using the blending mode color, or overlay or multiply, whatever look you're kind of going for. But the color blending mode is really handy. It essentially just puts the color on top and takes into account all the value information, and boom, you're done. And then maybe you can go back in later on if you're doing more painterly stuff and just add your color variations and again finesse it. But at that point, all the heavy lifting is done. So I do recommend doing things in grayscale, even if you're very graphic like I do sometimes. If you have a very complicated image, do it in grayscale. And now I'm just going in and yeah, sharpening up the shading, making sure I'm kind of doing as much work now as possible so I can just sort of play around with all the blending options later, which was super duper fun. It was funny. I actually was contemplating how I wanted to finish this piece. It's a personal work. It's like your OC. You can kind of do whatever the heck you want. You're playing a little jazz here. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to, really experiment on the more painterly, or really kind of have a lot of fun with my line art and keep it really graphic, or try and sort of marry the two. So it was a fun experiment, and that's sort of the really fun part about, doing personal projects and just doing personal things. You get to mess around. But yeah, I sort of went with a little bit of a hybrid with, the heavy blacks and the shading. And now I'm actually just putting on my first color layer. Again, the linking of the layers help with that, because I just linked the blue layer on top of the gray silhouette layer. And then I use color blend, and voila. And now I'm just using my old friend the lasso tool to trace around and fill a new layer up with the skin tone, and again putting kind of a blending mode on that so it takes into account the shading I've already put down. And now I'm really just trying to figure out how I'd like to finish off this piece. Fall Blue's palette's pretty self-explanatory. She's a lot of different shades of blue, and I really like kind of having, if the scarf has any sort of eyes, the scarf's eyes are red or an orange or something to really like pop that out. So those are kind of the colors I'm going for, and I'm gonna make them work together. So later on, I actually put a multiply layer on top, and I actually really like using this to make kind of cast shadows and really hard shadows. So I'll put on a multiply layer, make it a darker layer, and I'll actually use the lasso tool to um, cut out a lasso tool or eraser tool to cut out those highlights and kind of make those good, strong, easy cast shadows. And I think it just adds a little extra something. You know, the play between soft and hard shadows makes your picture look a little more interesting. So I'm just doing that and kind of finishing off the piece. Do a lot of finicking. And now I'm putting in the red of the eyes. And I always love that combination of just like the bluey purple and then like this red usually peering out of the darkness, which is always fun. And yeah, as you can see, I'm playing a lot with blending modes and trying to find sort of the right lighting and contrast. Some of these blending modes remind me of like a Persona game with like those crazy blacks and like this crazy like bright bold red color or something. I actually got the atmosphere I was going for by putting that red you saw and using pin light, I believe it was, just to unify all the colors and create that atmosphere. And it's a really good way of, once you spend all that time painting all these colors, just to make sure they all work together. But yeah, this is pretty much just wrapping her up, and the final should pop up any minute. And that's the video. Thanks so much for watching and getting to the end of it. If you like the video, give it a like. Leave a comment. See if could I have done anything better? Could I have done anything worse? And if you like seeing my videos, want to keep in the loop, I have one up every Thursday. Feel free to subscribe. And if you want to just follow me and see more of my work and my daily happenings, I have all my social media, Etsy, portfolio, all that down in the description. So there you go. But I will see you next week. Take care, y'all. Bye.